Hi, hello there. Hi to everyone. Greetings from Croatia, from Radiona Zagreb Makerspace. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm actually very supported here by, I don't know if you recognize, this is Alan Turing. He has really a very special place in our lab. And this is by our designer Damir Prizmic, the work, and it was supposed to, the one poster was supposed to be given to also STEAMhouse on this conference, but we will look at the future because there are only couple of these, made. But I really wanted to make sure to be
that was in there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Exactly. So I'll just tell you a little bit about Deborah. So we invited Deborah to be part of this STEAMhouse conference. Deborah is the creative director of an amazing makerspace in Zagreb, which is a capital of Croatia. It's called Radiona. And Deborah is also, I was looking at your profile, a STEAM and environmental consultant, and has recently co-founded a company called Intergalactica. Is that right?
Yeah.
Which is a startup for electronics and production. So just to give you a bit of background, the STEAM team met Deborah a few years ago when we went to Zagreb as part of an Interreg Europe project that I was coordinating and BCU were leading on. And the project was about trying to change city innovation policy to support makerspaces. So one of the opportunities that we got was to go and see some of the makerspaces in the cities that we were working with. So Zagreb municipality took us along to the Radiona space, and we were just truly impressed by Radiona's international reach, scale of ambition. Since at the time they were in quite a small room or two. There was 2 rooms, wasn't there, in a building just outside the main city centre. So it was sort of etched in our memory, and we remembered the work that Deborah and her team were doing from quite a small place, but they were, connecting across Europe and the world at the time. So it was really impressive to see. So I will hand over to Deborah now. I won't take any more of your time, but that's why we wanted to invite you here today to talk about building interdisciplinary communities and the work that you're doing with STEAM in Croatia. Thanks, Deborah.
Thank you very much, Lara, and thank you to all of you for in the STEAMhouse to invite me for your conference. I'm really impressed with the number of people that we are here, and it's really great and honor for me to be here. So I have to share my desktop, yeah? Just a second.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. Can you see my PowerPoint presentation now?
Yes, it's there, Deborah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So as you heard from Laura, how the whole story started with Radiona. Radiona is now about in its 10th year of activities. It's an interdisciplinary community of very diverse people who started as a result of one workshop. It was the first Arduino workshop in, I think, 2011 in Zagreb. And after that, we realized that this workshop, who was run by one artist, Ivan Marušić-Cliff, and one engineer or programmer, Igor Brkic, we realized that we actually have a scene. So we started from the workshop situation. We, at the beginning, wanted, we were located in a student center. Even none of us have been anymore a student, but really a very interesting combination of people who were artists, designers, engineers, hackers, makers. We wanted to have a space where we can educate ourselves, where we can do and work on different and diverse practices. So basically, what Radiona Zagreb Makerspace is, it's about interdisciplinarities. Some of us who are for a long time, into technology are actually from arts and humanities. So with Radiona, it was from the beginning very clear that we will be STEAM-based lab. We won't be a STEM-based lab. Because we really wanted to involve creativity, and because we were also doing diverse activities that are not only high-tech, they also involve many different things. And the first of one of the first foundations were that it was do it yourself, do it with others, or do it together. So it was around the open sourcing, hacking devices, tinkering, and a lot of new media art, and a lot of recycling, and actually playing around with the digital tools, but also with open source hardware. The situation at that time was like it was the rise of the DIY scene everywhere. It was the rise of the Maker magazine. The Arduino came out. Interactivity was starting to enter, and people, the communities around the world were simply gathering online. A little bit like similar now in our COVID-19 situation, when we again have to, join the forces and go, online to work together. So in a sense of what Makerspace and Media Lab is, these were kind of foundations that it should be a community operated workspace where simply people have their common interest. What is very specific for Radiona is that these are people who would usually never met in real life because they're so different. And what we realized at the beginning is the fact that what my colleagues previously really mentioned, what is the lack of communication sometimes between different professions, between arts and humanities from one side, and the other side is a tech side, the ICT side. So what STEAM is, what makes me really happy to see with STEAMhouse and your practices that you have now in UK, is the fact that you really are thinking about that, how these two are different, not only two diverse mechanics, and all of them are actually communicate. Craftsmen, people who are doing arts and crafts, and so basically what is the core and foundation of what we are doing is the citizen science. From the beginning, lab was more recognized internationally than abroad. When they realized from what kind of small places we are doing, like more practically like underground, and starting to do, you see, this is one of the first from 2011 Hackteria workshop that we have, a biohacking. We hacked, it is a very now actually a class of biohacking, making of a microscope from DIY microscopy from a webcam. It was by Marc Decellier, who was our really biggest supporter at the beginning when we started doing. And you see here at the photo a very young person who was like at that point 16 years or something, not knowing what to do. You see on the left contemporary artist, and you see at the other side biologist. The foundations of the lab were, of course, one of the first labs from like Seabase from Berlin, the Metal Lab, the Noise Bridge, the Talk from Dublin, Resistor, Swiss Mechatronic Art Society, Music Hackspace in London. So you see the scene was developing, and we were looking a lot to the bottom up, not to top down so much, but the bottom up. It was something when at the same time Fab Labs were starting also to develop at the same time. But we really wanted to do something that is going to be connected with people. So as you can see, we have in Zagreb very famous flea market called Hrelić, and you see this was also interesting for us, like this flea market culture, the garage science, people having home labs in the basement playground, weekend projects, and of course the Eastern Europe and Slavic countries, we have DIY heritage, which was do-it-yourself culture because of these functionalities of the systems. Through the communism and socialism, people were doing a lot of DIY practices. The sewing machine was also like 50, 60 years ago a common thing in the household. Men and women were doing these kind of crafts, but knew how to sew. Today you have another generation, one generation that has been very skilled and kind of a maker, but on the other hand, you have people who are basically not capable to change the light bulb, who don't know, some practicalities in life. And we were looking a lot at the beginning also at the educational practices, how people in Nordic countries, in Scandinavian countries like Finland, like Norway, Netherlands are doing, Denmark, are doing the same practices regarding in respect to education, non-formal education, the playground aspect into the formal institution. As you can see, the flea market culture and is the foundations, but also like the reverse engineering, to dare to be brave enough to dismantle, there is one topic in the schedule of this conference called demystifying. This is exactly, it cannot be more truly, you know, for the situation. What I think all STEAM based people are doing is demystifying technology and to do reverse engineering. Let's be brave enough to dismantle something. Of course, I cannot guarantee that we will again assemble it the same way, but you know, it might not happen necessarily with this kind of technology. Our target groups are, you know, the kids, the youth, the students, makers, artists, DIY enthusiasts, you know, technologists, but also like in a older people who are people, you know, this is why actually especially marked here the ordinary people, is because, you know, when I was a blogger previous to running the lab, I was interviewing Nigel Charnock, who was a performer previously performer of DV8, and he told me one amazing thing once. He told me, like, you know, I'm not interested in having as my audiences curators, critics, and dancers. I'm interested in ordinary people from the streets. So it's something that really resonated me so much. And then we talked a lot in the lab about it. What kind of people we actually want to gather? Do we want really to gather only a specific people, or we want to go more deeper, you know, to go and find these people and not only wait for them to come to us, but also to find them, discovering these hidden secrets, people who are into analog technologies, you know. And of course, you know, as inviting international guests, also supporting a lot domestic forces. Our activities are mainly based on education program, on the workshops, you know, because we want to, it's wonderful privileges that you have, that we get funded to bring amazing people here, but we want to share. It gives another value, and it gives you a social aspect. Exhibitions we do. I'm sorry to add that we also do research programs, community building. We have international and EU programs and residencies. The residencies are actually like the artist in residency, hacker in residency, maker in residence, engineer in residence. So it's very wide, international and domestic. We did like 9 hackathons, and we do a maker and hacker camp. I will tell you later. Entrepreneurial projects became a part of the space because we started to work on kits, and then we realized, and people were coming to us, you know, asking us to help them with their projects, you know. So it from this kind of let's say like repair shop in a way, it started to become more, went to more to these areas of helping people. And of course, people from our community also became entrepreneurs and starting their own companies, of course, and very socially engaged projects working with Roma people, with disadvantaged people. As you can see, it's a lot of things. It's a device art with 3D printing, solar robotics, and high-tech and low-tech, let's say. But what you can see here on this image, you see at the end, like Kinect. This is something what was when we were starting, you know, on the top, people were hacking with Kinect. And as you see, also dynamics with the technology is that in 1 year, everything changed. It's a very dynamic area, even with hacking. So it's interesting to see whether we should use technology or technology should use us. We are the ones that think it's actually based on Douglas Rushkoff's book, you know, a couple of years ago, published Program or Be Programmed. So we want to program. We don't want to be programmed. And we see the situation nowadays, especially with the COVID and what happened with us. We have many, as you can see on our website, many sections and many in the lab. We have microcontrollers, DIY prosthetics, wearables, programming, flying objects. We added now renewable energies and ecopunk also. We have a band for experimental electronics, is very strong audio sections. And for a couple of years at the Wikipedia Hackerspace note, we were actually mentioned as a audio only hackerspace, which was really funny for us that people were checking our program and they recognize us as someone who's been doing a lot in the sense of, you know, audio synthesis, but we also do restorations, you know, of these vintage electronics organs, because we work a lot with the museums. So actually what we like is an open source and shareable culture, you know, which has to be creative, has to be affordable as an opportunity for everyone. It has this high-tech and low-tech playground, you know, an approach, like also the gamification approach, and innovative approaches. It's a lifelong learning process, of course, because you will see later it's very intergenerational. So in a way, you want to far reach, you grow, you want to do continuous stuff. As we are a non-profit organization, you know, you need to do this planning, especially because we live in a country where there is a lot of non-profit organizations, and how it says, there's a lot of crocodiles. And Radiona is a very specific, you know, because we don't do projects because of doing projects, but we want really to make something that can sustain and something that has a reason, you know, to stay. And of course, it is a cutting edge, and it's based on also reusable technology. We don't wanna create a lot of waste. From the beginning, as you see, it was an arts and technology. We started in 2012 collaborating with Technical Museum in Zagreb, which is a science museum actually. So each year we produce about 3 to 4 exhibitions, you know, in our production. This one is, for instance, also an interaction, actually, installation, you know, for the exhibition, where our engineer and designers, Igor and Damir, they hacked actually a skateboard, you know, and they connected it with a beamer, and you can actually start and feel the sense of skateboarding, snowboarding in nature. It was in technical museums. So as you can see, the context of international, having an international guest gave us really, as it was a pool of knowledge and networking, you know. So these are the names of people who are really, in a way, now some of them are really very famous. When they started coming here, some of them were not even very, you know, they were at the beginning of their careers. So we always kind of serve as a space where people who are starting their careers can actually make their first jump, the first start. But here we actually really are talking about people from very diverse, from Brazil to Australia and Chile to Russia, Ireland, UK, and Germany. It's really, really hard to say, and they always like to come back. It's really a network of people. Yesterday I got a photo from Hacteria network, you know, having their gathering, a celebration of 10 years of the network, and a couple of their people there had Radiona t-shirts. It's something it doesn't have a price, you know, for this. The space, of course, is empowering women. This is the last, the fighting robot workshop, as you can see, and this also can show you, this could be a showcase, an example, how to wear and how not to wear the mask during the corona crisis. As you can see, the two artists are actually doing a fighting robot. The one of them, the bottom, is actually with the drilling machine, is not having properly the mask on the nose, and the second one is having the right nose. Okay, I'm joking, the right way of wearing mask. I'm joking, but it is a fact that the lab has like 40 to 45, sometimes 50% women. And it's really, the diversity is really enriching the lab. We have very inclusive aspect. As you can see here, you have a person who's been also, like, we are very open to diverse subcultures, you know, and people are really freely to express whatever their individualities feels like. You have here an engineer who is obviously a Rammstein fan, you know, really pretty much, but it could be in some other culture, could be very interesting to be readable in completely another context. The program is always intergenerational. We do a lot of exhibitions in municipal museums in smaller cities in Croatia. And for that, we are really like, the museums are really like us. And at the beginning, we were not opening our exhibitions with a lot of talk. We would be doing like typical new media. It was too hype for us. When we came to smaller municipal museums in smaller cities across Croatia, we realized I have to open and do curator guidance, because we had audience 60 plus. And these people were so eager, to use these interactive devices, these gamification devices. They are thrilled to hear the story, to become a part of story. And this is something that really turns us on a lot. But of course, working with the youngest ones, who are also always like parallelly part of, we do have education program for kids, but also children and youngsters are completely allowed to come on very complex workshops for grown-ups. And we are very happy to have this part really integrated within the lab and within the space. Recently, when we moved, what Lara said, we were really in a small space. This one is now double. It's 60 square meter, and this is a little bit bigger and nicer organized. And I got the feedback from participants when I asked, how did you hear about us, and do you like this? So how maybe we can change something. And one participant, she told me, like, it feels like home. And this is something that is priceless. It doesn't have really, when you get this, you really want people to feel like home. They feel really in a safe zone in any way, and they open up themselves to be, when you deal with technology and when people start as a beginners to learn something, they feel very vulnerable and not very common to open themselves. On that way, when you really make all of this when you make them easy, relaxed, then you get much more and happier and very, as a future prosperous makers. Design plays a lot, also an important thing. We have an amazing group of designers, and they're really creating, and they got invited very often to design exhibitions, to exhibit the posters of our exhibitions. This is something we are not doing. Regarding entrepreneurship, this is a story. We have an open source FPGA board. It's a very complex technology that some of you who are technologists here understand what I'm talking about. During Corona, in March, we had our first crowdfunding campaign, and we were scared. We prepared this campaign more than 1 year. It was a lot of work and a lot of thinking about whether we should be doing it or not. Are we enough brave, concentrated, and things like that? After 1 hour, and at the first weekend when Corona really was shaking this part of Europe, our campaign on crowdfunding actually was funded 139%, and this is yesterday percentage. As a result of this, we had to open the company that Laura mentioned, like the Intergalactic, and we gave the opportunity to one of our colleagues, so he was not very happy at his work, so he quit. He got another grants and support, so we opened a small startup and a small company that we want to develop really on a sustainable, like a lot of startups are, not many of them succeed. And this is something that and a lot of media is giving a pressure to these young people who are just being like a very successful entrepreneurs presented in the media. Then after 6 months, you see everything, they just close the company. We said we won't be doing like this. We are enough, mature to start to have this kind of as a process of, that has been based on sustainability, not just only media talking about entrepreneurship and startups, but really doing projects that make sense. What is this about innovative practices? Is as you can see here, there is on the left there is this Ivica, the guy who's been a mechanic. He presented his first robot, it was a lot of speakers on it in technical museum at one exhibition. It was 4 years ago. So 2 years ago is the same robot at the Ljubljana Maker Fair. You see, it looks almost like a car. It's a lawnmower. So you can cut the grass with it, and it's really interesting what he has been doing as a weekend project. This is amazing thing that you can get from people doing, and with their passion, allowing them to touch. One of the aspects of our exhibition and our work is doing interactive installations where people are actually moving and using their bodies. When we do this in museums and galleries, we don't put our artifacts, under some kind of plexi, so they are not touchable. It's not like a standard museum artifact. It's something that people are supposed to interact with. Even sometimes it breaks, then we repair it and things like that. But we want people to be invited to take part in the way how we see, world to the artworks we are exhibiting. The residence program is this is the previous space Lara was mentioning. It was super small, but you see happiness in these people. You see the Finnish resident. He's a very famous artist now, and he was doing, workshops here in residency for 3 weeks as a maker in residence, as a part of the European project, Creative Museum. So you see these kind of gatherings of people who are of different professions, of completely different backgrounds, and residence programs allows us first to bring these people here in Croatia, to give them space and tools, and of course the magic happens, the knowledge transfer happens. This is one of the first. I know I have 26 minutes. I have to be super fast. This is our first kit we did. It's a centimere. It is a result of artistic research we did. What is interesting, it was it's the first Croatian kit that we made: a synthesizer, theremin, looper, and a little kind of rhythm machine. He was exhibited at the Venice Biennale for Architecture in 2012. So these are the things that are interesting for us, to connecting unconnectable, to bring these devices, which are a result of engineering and design work, to very non-specific places and non-specific events. Off the grid labs and integration with nature and with biohacking is something that has been also the foundations. We do a lot of hiking, curiosity. You should never stop to be curious about it, and you should never. This is an experiment that is. I'm not going to recommend this with graphite, making electronic circuit, but you have to encourage people to do and to tinker of the process. And you see this as a result. These were the workshops when we didn't have funding to get 3D printers. We made ourselves 3D printers. And you see a lot of different people and different generations doing at the workshops actually a 3D printer and the mechanisms. We also like to reflect through our exhibitions, on the history of the scientists, the history of artists and scientists who were actually in a way, stopped to do something, like Alan Turing's machine. I think this was at that time, 3 years ago or 4 years ago, it was the second DIY Turing's machines in the world. We made a very wonderful exhibition about Alan Turing. It really inspired us, and the whole heritage he's brought in many levels. So what we do also is, by working with different organizations, different spaces, is building the new audiences. If you look really clearly on this photo, you see that this is a Filodrammatica in Rijeka. This is the capital of culture for this year. And you see that this is practically almost like a very neo-Baroque theater. But we do there the Abandoned Devices Festival with our collaborators, merging different technology. And of course, we do, it's also in the city of Rijeka, where are the audiences? We go with our workshops and our programs to the local quarters, to local neighborhoods. And we do the workshops with the local people that are intergenerational. We never wait the audience to come to us. We like to go to them. This is something what we also work, when we work with the museums, we recommend this. We have been so far in 4 European Erasmus Plus projects with diverse museums from Ireland, the Chester Beatty Library, from Ars Electronica, to the Christianstadt Arts and Craft Museum, Trondheim, Denmark City, Copenhagen Museum, really many projects with the Street Art Museum in Amsterdam, of course. many collaborative projects with these, and we are usually the only makerspace in these European projects, because as a hybrid organization, it's very untypical makerspace, because we know how to communicate with museum audiences and museum staff the same as with technologists. We do also maker camps in the nature. There is Electric Wonderland for last 2 years. It's under Creative Europe. It's also very diverse. This year we go as a residential lab because of the COVID crisis. We will do a lot of online streaming and merging a lot of environmental topics, surviving in nature, integration with nature, with new technologies. New realities, as you can see, for us is, of course, we cannot anymore invite so much international guests in the lab. For the last weekend, I managed to invite 2 Slovenian artists with a hex synthesizer workshop in the lab before getting almost like a red mark because of the COVID for last couple of days. They managed in the last moment to come home, to get back home, the millennials that were eager to come to bring the workshop here, and then in one day getting back to Ljubljana, and I had to make it sure that they will come back because and not going to the quarantine. So what I want to say at the end, we have to shape our realities, we have to shape our environments, and it's all in our hands. It depends on our creativity and our responsibility. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you so much. That was a brilliant overview of everything that you've been doing. We've got a lot of comments initially about how they like your work and the interest in the intergenerational work that you do. I think lots of people are saying, how can STEAMhouse do that, and what should we be doing in Birmingham? Have you got any advice for how you support the intergenerational and is it harder? Someone, I think Charmaine was asking, is it harder to engage the young people or the older people? Is there a challenge, or is it both generations as interested?
I think all generations are challenged, especially, in our case, we are Slavic people, we are Balkan people, and we are Mediterranean people. So for me, we have 3 layers, and it's really like very difficult. I have to say it depends. When we started the lab, we were in the student center, but we didn't have students at all. And I was like thinking what to do, because they were all the time sitting in a bar, being at a concert, but they were not like, I was really disappointed. How on earth we will bring these students back, because we are all like people between like 35 to 45. Now we are even, older people. But it is something you have to constantly work on. There are always oscillations. It's never like, it depends, especially when you work with communities. We work a lot for, there are a lot of ESF programs run by another organizations, because ESF itself is very complicated administration. So we usually like to work with other institutions. Last year, I was doing with really like 90 plus. It was really challenging, but it was also demanding in a way. To organize, to go to work with this generation of people. But I think it's great because they have some skills from the time that we didn't. They still remember the motoric skills. What we do with the museums, we do a lot of questionnaires, and we ask them, do you see differences with your audiences? And they're all telling me that they're noticing that the younger generations, they don't have motoric skills anymore. So and there is another thing that is also like digital dementia, that we really have to think about that. Younger generations are not reading a lot. The content is all the time. It's just like all the time just doing, and they were like Shelley Tucker and even Douglas Rushkoff. And there is a great book by a German author about digital dementia. Is really something that we have to rethink. COVID really is not on the side, of course, on the makers. As you mentioned from the beginning, the STEAMhouse is closed. We were also we opened it in May. And we started doing, we did only 2 online workshops, and our workshop leaders were not very happy with this. And then we said, okay, if we open, the masks are obligatory, but we need to continue working with our hands, because one thing is digitalization, which is more connected with how the state is doing its, how easier is to get some papers, documents, and things, and or MOOCs, online learning. But for the spaces itself, we need to continue the work, because otherwise people will be jobless, and we don't want this. And it is, I think, also kind of a way to rethink for all of us doing in all of the sectors how we will overbridge this situation. So let me get back, because I like to talk really wide. As you can see, it is challenging. It does include a lot of work, and first with your own community, to learn. It was a process for us, like for 10 years, to get engineers to understand the process when we exhibit in exhibition. It also brings certain responsibility, because our engineers and hackers at the beginning, it was all the time we had story about cyberpunk, about the machine being opened, and virus showed, all the viruses were up. And after some time, we cultivated them to understand that the device has to work. It has sometimes to communicate. It is about communication. You can have a brilliant mind, but with the lack of social and emotional skills. This is something it's a social and emotional intelligence too. So for that reason, STEAM is important, not STEM only. Because there is a sociological book of analysis about the STEM people, and if you have only one side of looking, you can really much easier manipulate with people. We really have to bring them this creative side. For that reason, we were looking a lot into formal education in the Netherlands, in Finland, because I was a policymaker previously in the cultural sector. I was looking how Denmark is sorting out. And a colleague in Finland from the Finnish Ministry of Education told me once, because I think every country in Europe asked, always in Finland, how on earth are you doing this? How is that you are so successful in education? And what turned out is that creative education is always the foundation. And later on, they decided whether they are going to be engineers, dentists, programmers, writers. This is something but on this, you are making more socially aware people, more empathetic people, because we also lacking the empathy, the compassion, because there are many, people are losing jobs, especially now. The situation is rather challenging in each country. So we need to work more on these skills, and we need to get our minds, hands back into action, because you see what we are doing with our nature. We have to finally start enjoying the nature and learning from the natural processes, learning a lot from biology, for the future of for our societies. I think it will be crucial to look again to the nature and to try to make these hybrid worlds.
Great. Thank you, Deborah. So we've had lots of comments saying it was a very inspirational presentation, and that they're really excited about what you're doing. Someone else has just said, yes, creativity embedded in education, vital, really important, your comment there. So Tom was asking, and I was thinking the same, how is this, are you always funded by projects, or is it grant orientated, or is it IP, or how do you fund all these activities?
Well, actually, we all have like jobs 8 to 4. I employed myself finally at the end of last year, because I really said, okay, I have to focus after 9 years. I want to focus on the lab, and it was really difficult. I'm not 20 years old, to do this like 2 jobs. So I was doing this for 9 years, and then I said, come on, I can't do this anymore. So basically for the renting space, we have Cultura Nova Foundation, which it's funded from the cultural sector, So mainly it's a cultural sector that is giving the space renting, and from the European and the Ministry of Culture and the City Council of Zagreb. Now we start, and of course we do our own productions now, and we started to collaborate with bigger organizations on sustainable development. So they are inviting us in program to do. I think the future will look like that. We had because still. We are still the small organization, It's not something that we want to make like massive, but it would be really nice to get it onto more. So so far, I'm the only one who is employed, Yeah, but it's from the cultural sector mainly. It is. There is a lot of, as I mentioned, a lot of organizations in Croatia. So that's maybe the NGO sector is very fruitful. But it is a question, I think, sometimes from the mentality point of view, that you have a team, and then after a couple of months they get into fight, and then each of these are founding their own organizations. So that you have like a hyper production.
Sure. And someone else was saying, could the intergenerational work perhaps be funded through social care, healthcare? Is this an alternative to daycare and that sort of thing? Yeah, I mean, for us in Birmingham and maybe you as well,
Yeah, it is. It's not such a percent. You have in UK, as I was following for years, as I was a policymaker for Brussels. In UK, you have in Ireland, you have very good social policies. You might be very critical towards yourself, but don't be, because you have really interesting. Interesting policies and instruments for funding these kind of activities, so it could be, but it depends if you are a bigger player or not. I wanted to apply for Erasmus Plus in Croatia for in our agency, so be a lead. And then I sent our proposals to our agency, and I had a meeting and discussing about the project. And then one of their experts asked me, we were talking, and after 10 or 15 minutes, she told me like, hey, but Maker, and I was referring as we are Makerspace Maker, and she said, yeah, but this is a policy maker, right? And I said, no, it's not about policy maker. Maker is a term. And then I gave up, and I said to the partners, I think somebody else in some other countries should apply, because it's a problem of capacity building of certain institutions, and still it's a small country. We still are dealing with corruption a bit. So it's a long story, maybe not for a conference now, because I gave you the positive rush. I don't want to facing reality. I don't want to be down at the end of this conference. Yeah.
So there's a positive point. There's a point here for you. I think that's it's a good point. But hopefully the maker space and the maker community is developing and growing in Zagreb, because we know some of the work that your colleagues from the municipality are doing as well. So it's quite impressive what has gone on in the last few years since we first met you. So somebody else has got a point about great presentation. They said Tyrone Higgins said, great presentation and interesting that bottom-up development and fluidity of ideas. Sounds like you have an intensive admin system to support this. So yeah, nice comment there. I'll see if there's anything else. I've not got long left, so I'll see if I can get anything else in. The ANC STEAM is subject. I can't see some of these comments.
Thank you very much for your feedback. It's really it really means a lot to me, and to really that you can see what we are doing. And for me, it's also a learning experience for what you have done with the STEAMhouse, and because really there are not many. It is a difficulty I've noticing now, as we are from the cultural sector. When I mentioned, the business plan or something in the cultural sector, it's kind of, with a cat, like on internet, the cat with the lasers. They just, because it's not the cultural sector, independent sector also is having this prejudice against entrepreneurial, creative industries. UK and Anglo-Saxon countries have different policies over decades on creative industries. Whilst the East European policies were different, and creative industries are kind of like you sold your soul or something, but they don't get that people have to live and earn something. And for that reason, small craftsmen and designers are having creative industries. It's not only about the massive projects. And this is very not so thankful position in that sense. So you always have to swim in between, and because of that, and it is it took for me with my community a couple of years ago, if I would mention the word startup, people would say no, even the open source people, because we want to open source, we don't want to copyright. And we found a way over the years of intensive talk, how actually to make a company and a startup out of the open source project through our crowdfunding campaign. And so they can see that it's just an economic term, but it doesn't mean that we are all going to sell our soul to devil. It doesn't mean like that. So it's a lot of it's a constant discussion. Yeah. But if you have a program, if you give, and of what I want to say to people from around the globe, it's also not only about having expensive machines, but some people, and what I've noticed the practice also in Zagreb, that they think, yeah, we will buy tons of very expensive machines, but it doesn't mean it will bring people. Not at all. So working with communities and with people, it takes another level. So you can have amazing space, but it could be empty.
Yeah.
And if it's too clean, you have to also give to people to get their hands dirty. It's something now, nothing goes easy, like, oh, we can get a big grant, tons of machines. So, it's just like that. It's not like that. It's with people. It depends on, of course, it's different. In UK, you have a lot of rain. In my country, when it's raining, people are not coming because it's raining. When it's sunshine, they also, people are, it's sunshine, we go to the mountains and things like that. And from Greece to Spain and all of this Mediterranean part, I'm listening with my colleagues for years, the same thing. We have the same problem. If you would not go out, if you would not go out because it's raining, you would never go out. Or my Dutch friends. And here it is like, if you have we work a lot with dancers, and I know my colleagues said to me, hey, I have a performance in the dance center, but they called me and said they see a cloud from the center. They said, we see a cloud there, and we might postpone the performance because no one will come.